fans. There's a lot of people out there that are hoping that Bray Wyatt will return to WWE, and I can tell you that there is some movement on this. There is definitely reports coming out, and a very juicy report has just come out from Slice Wrestling. Now, what I'm going to say is Slice Wrestling is not some kind of source that I use that often, but they are a source that I'm aware of, and you have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt. We're waiting for the Fightful report to drop. There is a Fightful report that's coming out. That should be out within the next 20 minutes. So we're going to talk about the Slice Wrestling report first, because if this is true, it is massive. It is absolutely huge. So there is a Slice Wrestling report that's come out. And as we said, probably the one that's going to carry more weight, that's going to be the Fightful report. So let's get to this Slice Wrestling report, shall we? I'm going to show you the tweet on screen so that we're totally on the same page. But here is the Slice Wrestling report. As you can see, this was tweeted out. It says, Bray Wyatt finalizing a deal to return to WWE. Triple H's major offer includes WWE Championships, Wrestlemania main events, creative freedom, and a major push, backstage details, and more. Now, I've got the article in front of me. I do want to stress this, though, before people start, totally losing their minds. Slice Wrestling is a source that I don't ever really use. Not because I don't trust them, but just because they're not that active. In a world of Dave Meltzers and Sean Ross Sapps, this isn't a source that I use that much. So we are really waiting for the Fightful report. The Fightful report, to me, is going to be a lot more meaningful. If the Fightful report comes out, and there is a Fightful report on the way, they've already said that the Fightful report will be out within the next 20 minutes. If that drops, and we will be live for it, if that drops and it basically backs this up, then you can start freaking out, right? Then you can start freaking out. I think for now, if you're a Bray fan, things are looking pretty exciting. As we said, we've got this Slice Wrestling report. We're going to get the Fightful one, all right? Let's talk about this Slice Wrestling one, shall we? So, Slice Wrestling says there has been recent talks between Bray Wyatt and AEW. So, apparently he's been in negotiations with a significant contract that was offered. But ultimately, Bray feels that Triple H can help unleash the Fiend character to its maximum potential. Triple H plans on making the Fiend one of the top WWE superstars in the company, and WWE Championship runs have also been discussed along with WrestleMania main events. Now, Slice Wrestling is saying that it's getting this from one of its sources. It's obviously not going to name its sources. Sean Ross Sapp doesn't name his sources. Again, you have to take this with a pinch of salt. I am very, very aware this is not a source that I really lean on that much or use that much. It's not WrestleVotes. It's not Sean Ross Sapp. It's not Dave Meltzer. We are waiting for the Fightful report. That's the one that is going to really tell us what's going on. This one, just kind of coming out of left field. But what I will say about this is it's not a kid, right, sat in his bedroom just putting anything out. If you actually go back through the history of the website, which is what I've done, you can see that they've got quite a few stories that they've clearly got some information on, because there are stories on their website that do prove to be true. They do say things that are going to happen that then do happen, which is quite interesting. You know, they talk about the fact that Theory's going to be winning the United States Championship and things along those lines. So, and obviously we know that he does go on to win the United States Championship. So, yeah, it kind of says to me that there is potentially something to this. Bray Wyatt has got unlimited ideas for his character that he was never allowed to produce under Vince McMahon. Some of the ideas include cinematic horror-style vignettes and matches that Triple H will allow him to create, a source tells Slice Wrestling. Triple H is fully aware of the in-ring storyline and merchandise power that Bray Wyatt possesses and wants to make him a featured attraction of this new era. As WWE moves into a new generation, an unleashed Fiend character would be something to behold. WWE is becoming exciting once again on the road to WrestleMania 39. Be sure to stay with us for this explosive ride, blah, 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 blah. So, not loads of details there, but to be honest, what else would you expect? Because if that is true, that's a hell of a lot of detail, I think. You know, them finding out not only that talks have happened, but what is potentially in those talks. You know, the fact that there is potentially WrestleMania main events lined up. I mean, to be honest, if Bray is going to come back and the Fiend character is going to return, they are going to need some big things to say to him. They're going to need to give him, like, creative control. They're going to need to give him WrestleMania main events. They're going to need to kind of really give him, I suppose, all those things he felt he never got under Vince. So it's very interesting. Again, I have to keep stressing it, though. This is one that you have to take with a pinch of salt. Like, I don't think they're going to have just made this up. Like, this isn't just a kid that sat on Instagram. As I said, you know, you can actually go back through their website and you can see stories that actually are true and do prove to come true. So that's why this is quite interesting to me. But the one I'm waiting for is now around about 15 minutes away. Fightful in about 15 minutes. Something's definitely happening, said Wrestling and Comics Awesomeness. More than ever before Bray's previous teases. Yeah, there does just seem to be something going on. I mean, you've got the fact that Bray put that message out, that cryptic tweet. So that cryptic tweet went out there, which, as we said at the time, we did a video on it. It was him kind of falling in love with wrestling again, which I thought was so interesting. A lot of people have read in and tried to, like, rip the whole thing apart. Bray has actually come out and said that message, that tweet, is not cryptic. Like, you're not meant to be ripping it apart. It's he said what it is. It's him reminding himself why he loves wrestling and what wrestling means to him. Now, what I would say about that is, and I've said it a few times, why would you remind yourself of something, right? It's because you've left it, you've forgotten about it, and now you're reminding yourself about it. So for me, it's not so much what it says and, like, trying to find the clues and all of that. It's more about the fact that he is reminding himself about what wrestling means to him, right? And so that feels to me like it's a pretty good indicator that he is getting back into a mindset of wanting to return to wrestling. Not only that, but you might have seen that John Cena actually put that tweet up on his Instagram as well, along with a picture of those two competing at WrestleMania 36, which is really quite interesting because that could be Cena just trying to get in on the conversation, or it could be Cena helping Bray, kind of trying to kind of get the message out that there's something going on here. Then you've got Sean Ross Sapp, who dropped a tweet last night saying, do you want me to give you a report about what's happening with Bray? Because he's spoken to people, and apparently people are starting to think that they're closer than ever, like, you know, closer than ever to getting Bray back. And I think that coming from Sean Ross Sapp is big. You know, him saying they're closer than ever, or they feel closer than ever to getting Bray back, from someone like Sean Ross Sapp is massive. So that's why we're waiting for the Fightful report, because whatever details he's got, whatever he's actually been able to find out, he said that he's going to drop, like, you know, later on, basically, or very, very soon. So that should be, hopefully, within the next 10 minutes or so. and then add on top of that this Slice Wrestling piece that's just come out as well, which I've been tagged in. A big thank you to everyone watching that's tagged me in that, because I've been tagged in it quite a few times, and it's very interesting to read. I mean, there's a lot of fake news that's doing the rounds, and you do need to be careful. And that's why I'm constantly saying we're waiting for the Fightful report. I really do trust what those guys say, because Sean Ross Sapp has been proven time after time after time that clearly he's got sources. Clearly he's got people that are in the know. And so I trust him. Jury's out on Slice Wrestling, right, for me. It's not a source that I tend to use, but I think this is really interesting. There's quite a bit of stuff in here. I mean, if they're just completely making this up, I mean, they have gone for it, because they've really put a lot of, it's a long article. It's on their website. They've put a link out on Twitter. You can go onto their website and see they've had previous stories. You can see that, some of those have proven to come true as well. So, yeah, I think this is very interesting. Very, very interesting. As we said, round about less than 10 minutes away now. Follow the Buzzards, says William. Shout out to you. Story is on Fightful now, says Geeky Ghost. Okay, thank you. Let's go and have a look, shall we? This is the one I've been waiting for. This is the one that I wanted to see. And to be honest, I've been waiting all day. No, it's not on there yet. There's one here that's it's just gone up about half an hour ago, and that's information about AEW Quake by the Lake. But I am actually on there, Fightful Select, and nothing's gone on there yet. So he said that he is going to put it up, though. He said that he will put it up. So we are just waiting for that at the moment. Bray Wyatt, Johnny Gargano will come to either Raw or SmackDown. It's a slow process of shocking returns. Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Bray one, right? I mean, you've got to remember that Triple H has only just taken control off Vince. So the thing with the Bray one is, I think that's the hardest deal to do. I think that any other deal, I mean, a lot of like those talents like Dakota Kai, for example, Karrion Kross, Dexter Lumis, they are basically NXT talents. I know that Karrion did come up to the main roster, but he wasn't there very long, and he didn't have a great experience. And as we said, it was 5 minutes that he was around. So for him, really, he's still more NXT than main roster. So reaching out to him and saying, look, here's a second chance, come back and make a name for yourself. That, I think, is quite straightforward, because who's going to turn that down? The thing with Bray is he's been there for a long time, had success. It might not be as much success as many people wanted, but he has been there and had success. So it's going to be harder now, because he's kind of been stung. Do you know what I mean? He's been there. I'm sure he's been promised the world. I'm sure those promises were broken. And so, there's maybe a bit of a trust issue. Now, obviously, that trust issue is going to be more with Vince than it is with Triple H. But there's still going to be a trust issue. And there's still other people that I'm sure have let him down other than Vince. Kevin Dunn, for example, might have let him down. He's still there. Bruce Pritchard might have let him down. He's still there. So, I'm sure there's other people other than just Vince that he's maybe not crazy about working with. And also, if he comes back, he's going to want to know that he's going to have better control over whatever character, be it The Fiend, or even if he comes up with something new, he's going to want a better control over it, because he didn't really have that control like he wanted over The Fiend. I can't imagine he was thrilled with that Hell in a Cell match. In fact, I know he wasn't. Reports came out saying that apparently, didn't he tweet something about that, actually? I think Seth Rollins, spoke about how angry he was after that Hell in a Cell. And apparently, he had a go at Vince. And I think Bray tweeted, you should have seen my reaction, or something along those lines. So we know that he wasn't happy with that Hell in a Cell match, Fiend against Seth Rollins. I can't imagine he was over the moon when he lost to Goldberg, and lost the championship to Goldberg. We know that he was meant to have a match with Cena. Obviously, that ends up changing and it becomes the Firefly Funhouse match. That, I think, was Bray. I think that was Bray and Cena putting their heads together. But that was going to be a match in front of fans, and it would have been a different match as well. So, lots of change, lots of turbulence. I think that's going to be a difficult deal. And that's why I just think, the idea that Triple H takes over and Bray comes back, I just think that's, you're away with the fairies there, because I think there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, a lot of negotiating that needs to be done. But I think with Vince going, that is a massive boost, a massive, massive boost. And I think I feel really good about him coming back now. I really didn't whilst Vince was there, because whilst Vince was there, I think there was always this barrier. But now that Vince has retired, which, who saw that coming? But now that Vince has retired, I think things definitely are looking up. And it's really interesting. As we said, take it with a pinch of salt, this Slice one. I wouldn't get too crazy about this. The Fightful one is the one that we're really waiting for, but no way could I not mention this. I mean, look at the headlines there. Bray Wyatt finalizing deal to return. Lots of detail in there about, him being offered WWE Championship runs, Wrestlemania main events, creative freedom, major pushes. I mean, there's quite a bit to that. I don't know how they've managed to get this kind of detail, but there it is. It's in front of you. You can go to Twitter, click the link, read the article for yourself. It's right here from Slice Wrestling. So check Twitter, says Cavi. Check Twitter. What's happening on Twitter? I mean, Twitter is a big place, just so you know. So I can go to Fightful and see if that report is up. I mean, they're going to put it basically on Fightful Select. I've got the website up here. So as soon as it drops, then we will be able to... Here we go. It has dropped. Wow, and it's a big report as well. It's a big report. Right, I tell you what, I obviously haven't read it. I'll read it to you and we'll go through it together. Several in WWE believe Bray Wyatt could be re-signed since Vince McMahon is gone. So this is the report. This is coming from Fightful. They have spoke to several people in WWE that believe Bray could now be re-signed. Just a reminder, Slice Wrestling are reporting that their source is saying that the deal is close to being done, right? You can start getting a bit more excited now. Fightful Select has spent the past couple of weeks gauging interest from WWE higher-ups, staff, and talent. If you thought Vince McMahon no longer being in control was a good sign, you was right. One talent said he could tell by last year that Vince was simply done with Bray Wyatt and just didn't like him personally. Oh my god, this article is fire. McMahon would shout derogatory things at Bray Wyatt about his physique, which the talent believes actually stemmed from the fact that Wyatt would often criticize the lack of creative direction that his stories or characters would be going in. When word emerged of Bray having a bad attitude, that came from those who worked directly with Vince McMahon. There were also several other instances of rumours started within that circle to ease the heat off of WWE for releasing him. Those that worked with him heavily were quick to shoot down those rumours, which aren't worth mentioning now. One WWE higher-up said Vince McMahon had reservations whenever Wyatt's name was brought up post-release. This is fascinating. So first of all, Wyatt's name getting mentioned after he had been released to Vince McMahon. Do you not find that interesting? Like, why would you be talking about Bray Wyatt after you've let him go? Like, is it because of the fact he was trending so often, or whatever it was? That's really interesting. So yeah, you've got that. I really the stuff about his physique as well. I think that's so interesting. So apparently, like, McMahon would criticize his physique, but they're saying it's because Bray was very vocal about the fact that the creative direction was just not right for his, like, characters and, like, the stories and everything. When things were going bad, Wyatt would say they were bad, and Vince saw that as difficult to deal with. One WWE higher-up said, before noting, they think he'd fit in way better in today's landscape. And that is from a higher-up. That's not just a talent. That's someone that's higher up in the company, saying they think that Bray would fit better in today's landscape. One of those major points of frustration came at WrestleMania 2021. After months of Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt storylines, things were changed days before the match. One person who worked on the match and story said no one at any point among the journey had a clue as to what was supposed to be happening. The finish changed the day before. They bragged a surprise. Randy Orton was supposed to lose and then take months off. Instead, Bray Wyatt was effectively done in WWE. The person who we spoke with effectively confirmed there was never a long-term plan by Vince for the resolution of the story, which frustrated those involved as it was heavily featured. That is amazing. So WrestleMania 2021 was changed, the days before the match, and saying that basically when it was changed, that's when they knew Bray was effectively done. So interesting. Another talent recalled that saying that type of thing is why they specifically didn't push back on the creative, because if Wyatt could get fired, they certainly didn't feel safe. When the firing was cited as budget cuts, that was another hit to morale for several that we spoke to at the time. One talent said, if he makes the company money hand over fist and they use budget cuts as an excuse, then what am I? The talent has since been let go in the company. That's interesting. So a talent spoke to Fightful, basically saying if they're going to let him go, I don't stand a chance. And whoever that was has since been let go. Wow. While we don't know the relationship between Triple H and Bray Wyatt specifically, several noted the obvious that this is now a clean slate. If Triple H thinks a talent can help the company or make money, most believe he's going to largely throw whatever issues they had with Vince out of the window for the sake of creating a better show. The talent outside of WWE that we've heard from about this particular situation say that even if they were booked poorly in WWE or by Triple H himself, him being in control renews optimism as there's no Vince over him. One person who worked heavily with Bray said, I can't speak for him, but I know I've heard his name brought up. And I don't know how you couldn't feel better about coming in now if you was him. Also, several current talent said they'd happily go to bat for him, but don't believe that he needs it. This is a long article, by the way, but lots of detail. They're saying this is all stuff they've built up over weeks, like different conversations with higher-ups and talent and things along those lines. There were many people that noted to us at WrestleCon that it didn't seem like Bray Wyatt had completely closed the door, but that's more for him to say. It was reiterated to us that he has got no interest in going to Impact Wrestling. I don't know why that would come up, but I suppose there's been a lot of conversations about, well, if he's not going to go to WWE, where are those other landing places? Will he go to AEW? Will he go to Impact? I suppose in a way it's quite interesting that he's got no interest in Impact. And there's been quite a few people saying AEW might not book his characters as strong and as well as kind of what, WWE had. I mean, AEW don't really tend to go in for that kind of thing, and when they do, You can make an argument it's a little cheesy, like the House of Black with the lights going off all the time, and that Alex guy, whoever he is, I don't know. I mean, like, you can definitely make an argument that the presentation is levels below. So, I don't know. We'll have to see, but no interest in Impact, at least. Those close to Wyatt have started to go very quiet about what's happening with him, where they would formally shoot down incorrect reports about his mental health or fake rumors of negotiations. We can confirm his name has at least been pitched for a return with Creative. Oh my God. That's the killer line for me. That is the killer line. Fightful. Yeah, there's your headline. We can confirm his name has been pitched for a return within Creative. So, I mean, what else do you want there? Creative, WWE Creative are throwing around his name for a return. That is people within WWE's creative department, yeah, throwing around ideas about Bray Wyatt returning. I mean, that you've not had... There's been nothing close to that for, since he was fired. Nothing like that has come out. You know, it's all been like, oh, will he go back? Won't he go back? That's a killer line in this report. We can confirm his name has been, and it says at least pitched. So they're not going as far as saying, there's been actual conversations, but they're saying at least his name has been mentioned within WWE Creative. It's not guaranteed as a return. Many names do get pitched. We can confirm there has been interest to some degree for Wyatt to do acting, but we're not sure where that stands now. That was long. That was a long report, to be honest. But a lot of interesting stuff in there. A lot of interesting stuff. I think that if you are a Bray Wyatt fan, I think that you can get more excited. I think you can get more excited because we've got a report from Slice Wrestling, and if you are just joining us, we started our live stream about 30 minutes ago. And really, we were waiting for that report. Quite a bit in there. I think the killer line for me is right at the end that Creative have pitched a return for Bray Wyatt. I feel like that's going to grab the headlines. I think the fact, lots of little details in there as well about how the WrestleMania match last year was changed last minute, about how Vince viewed Bray, and the fact that there was those creative differences, which we heard, but maybe not into these kind of details. The fact they spoke to a talent that was nervous because, they all knew that Bray was making money for the company. Literally, the wording is hand over fist. So Bray was generating so much money for WWE that the other talent was saying, well, if they're going to let him go for budget cuts, what chance do I stand? And then how interesting that person has since been released. So, again, don't know who that was, but very, very interesting. And as we said, Wyatt's name being brought up post-release to Vince as well. It says one higher-up said Vince had reservations whenever Wyatt's name was brought up. So it seems like they pitched... That seems to suggest to me that there has been a pitch for Wyatt to return to Vince. Someone has said to Vince, we should bring Bray back. Someone's had that conversation with Vince McMahon. We should bring Bray back. And it says that he has always had reservations whenever that conversation has come up. So, bits in there. A lot of bits in there. Cal said Sean does that, like with Cross, he said discussions, and then he showed up, so I think it's happening, says Cal W. Yeah. To be honest, I mean, all I can do is tell you where my thoughts are with this. When Vince was there, I didn't think it was going to happen, right? I was very much of the opinion that if Bray is going to go back, he is going to need to change something because, nothing's changed. Vince is, the company's still doing great. I mean, like, Wrestlemania was massive this year. It's not like, the ratings have absolutely fallen through the floor or anything. Like, everything was going fine. So they didn't desperately need him. I mean, it just all seemed like everything was just going as it was. So for me, something needed to change. Like, Bray needed to really, be about to sign with AEW, or maybe sign with AEW for a year, 12 months, and do amazing stuff. And then it's like, do I re-sign with AEW, or, oh, look at this, now WWE are interested in me? I mean, you've always got to raise your profile. You've got to always increase your stock. And since Bray has gone away, what has he done? He's done a film that, to my knowledge, hasn't even come out yet. So, has Bray raised his stock? Has anything actually changed since he left? To me, no, right? But what did change was Vince went. And as soon as Vince went, that's when I was like, wow. I mean, if you are taking over creative after Vince McMahon, you want to please the fans, don't you? You want the fans on your side. You want the fans believing in you. And there is no name out there, as far as I know, that the fans want to see come back more than Bray Wyatt. I mean, there's a reason as to why we're doing this live stream. It's because this is where the conversation is. This is where the conversation is. This is where the conversation has been since he left. So it's a no-brainer that, report drops. We've got this Slice report drop in. This feels like the right thing to do today, because this is the person that people want to return. And there is just that kind of groundswell now. We're starting to see more reports coming out. There's nothing concrete in the sense of he's going to be at Clash, right? We don't have that. If you're looking for that, it's not at that point yet. But what I would say is that this report, certainly the Slice one, if that's true, but this Fightful one, definitely are steps forward. You're constantly taking just a little step forward, another step forward. I mean, if you take nothing else away from this video, WWE Creative have pitched a Bray Wyatt return, right? People within WWE Creative, and that's not me just making it up, that is coming from Fightful. So if you take nothing else away, we have definitely taken some steps forwards in regards to Bray Wyatt returning. Now, where that pitch went, like how Triple H feels about Bray. I mean, if Triple H is, I don't know, had bad experiences with Bray and he's like, no, not interested. Well, I don't have that information. I'm also not aware that that's what's happened. And, I mean, listen, if you're taking over that job, you want to please the fans. You want big moments. You want the biggest, most exciting surprises. There is no one out there that is going to give you a bigger moment than Bray Wyatt coming back. So this is why, as I said, and as Cal said as well, this is what Sean does. He spoke about Cross and how he was in discussions, and then he showed up. Same was true with Dexter Lumis as well, actually. So Karrion Kross, Sean came out and said there's been conversations about Karrion Kross coming back. He dropped that news on Friday. By SmackDown, Friday night, he was back. Karrion Kross was back, right? Then on Monday, I think it was about an hour or so before Raw, Sean dropped a story saying, Dexter Lumis, Dexter Lumis is is close to coming back. Like, there's been conversations. It's looking really good. Boom. And how did Raw end? Dexter Lumis is back, right? So I'm not saying that this means that Bray's going to be showing up SmackDown or anything like this, or even Clash at the Castle. But what I am saying is that there's definitely things you can take away from this report. So yeah, it's good. It's exciting. I want to try and jump into the chat. I also want to see actually if this has worked. Let's have a look. No, it's literally a monkey with a hammer. So no, that has not worked. But I was hoping was going to be the chat. This is what I've been waiting for all along. No disrespect to the fans, but we needed reports to come out for us to think something concrete before it was just them. Yep. As I said, I mean, I'm trying to kind of get across where my head's at with all of this, and so that we're on the same page, because I don't need people coming back going, oh, you said Bray was coming back, and it's like, that's not the conversation we're having. The conversation we're having is, I've got a report here from Slice Wrestling, which I can read again for you. Now, Slice Wrestling, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. It's not it's not one of my trusted top tier sources, right? My top tier sources: Meltzer, Sean Ross Sapp, WrestleVotes. You might not trust those, you might not like those. I've always found them to be amongst the most accurate, yeah? So those are my top tier sources. If they say something, I listen. Anyone below that, I obviously pinch of salt. But what I will say about Slice Wrestling is they are a proper organisation. They've been around for a while. I think they started up about 2016, so they've been around about 6 years. They've got a website. It's got tons of articles on it. And you can go back and actually see some of the things they've predicted that have come true. So take it with a pinch of salt. That's all I can say. But basically it says here that Triple H obviously has taken over, and there's been recent negotiations. They're going further than Fightful. They're saying that not only has his name come up and been pitched by WWE Creative, but that there has been talks, and that they are close to a multi-million-dollar deal that will see him return to WWE. They're also saying that Triple H plans on making him a massive star. Now, all I will say is that if you are going to spend multi-million dollars on a wrestler, right, you're doing it because you're going to make him a big star. Like, I don't think that's too much of a jump. You're not spending multi-million dollars for a jobber, right? You're spending multi-million dollars because it's someone that you see as being a star, right? So I don't know, like, how much of this they're just reaching on. Maybe they're not reaching on any of it. I don't know. But they're saying that Triple H plans to make him a top star, give him championship runs, and also it's been discussed Wrestlemania main events. That's interesting. That's interesting because you wouldn't write that if you're speculating, because you're saying it has been discussed of Wrestlemania main events. Bray Wyatt has got more ideas for his character that he was not allowed to produce under Vince. Some of those ideas include cinematic horror-style vignettes and matches that Triple H will allow him to create, a source tells Slice Wrestling. Triple H is aware of the in-ring, the storyline, and the merchandising power that Bray Wyatt possesses, wants to make him a featured attraction of this new era. As WWE moves into this new generation, an unleashed Fiend character would be something to behold. And then it just talks blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, really the headlines there are that conversations been had. A deal is a multi-million-dollar deal. It's being finalized, not signed, not done, but being finalized. And, they're talking about championship runs, WrestleMania main events, blah, 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 blah. That coming from Slice Wrestling. Take it with a pinch of salt, yeah? The one that probably definitely put more stock in is that Fightful report. That Fightful report, if you are just joining us, the Fightful report says that Bray Wyatt has been mentioned by WWE Creative, right? That's probably the big line to take out of it, is that they have mentioned him. And not only that, his name has been mentioned to Vince after he was released. We've never heard that before. So his name was mentioned to Vince after he was released. That come in from a higher up in WWE and reported to Fightful. So I think that's interesting, because that says to me there's people within that company that are pulling for Bray to come back. There's people that, were trying to put the argument to Vince of, like, we should bring this guy back. And Vince was very reluctant, very resistant. It just, look, not long ago had he let him go. So, and as I said, nothing has really changed, has it? So I can't say I'm too surprised at that. So, yeah, some interesting stuff. Let's try and get your thoughts. We'll spend about 10 minutes getting your thoughts and see what you lot think. Bray and Rowan are both rumoured, says Guna. Jordan said, let's not forget Roman's stake either. Don't see streak either. Don't see them throwing that away with everything that's been done. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because that run of Roman's actually started when he ended Bray's Universal title run. Bray was the champion. I believe The Fiend was in his second reign. So, and it was him against Braun. And then, of course, Roman came down mid-match, signed the contract, ended up pinning Braun, but winning the title that way. And so, yeah, this would be full circle. This would be, if he does come back in time, he could come back and win back the title that really he never lost, because he was never pinned for it. It was Strowman that was pinned in a triple threat match. People forget this is how Roman's historic 700 plus day title reign began. That's how it began. I mean, it's been so long that I can understand people forgetting, but yeah, he pinned Strowman in a triple threat after the ring breaks. Do you think Triple H could bring back Bo as well, said Sam Lee Masters 2K? Well, I can't say, can I? Because there's no reports on that. What I will say is that if the Slice Wrestling report is true, then it certainly sounds like Bray will have a lot of say and a lot of influence. I am taking the Slice one with a pinch of salt. I'm just putting that out there. Like, I'm mentioning this now because I'm getting tagged in it all the time. It's a topic of conversation. I will be asked, I'm sure, on watch-alongs, did you hear that Bray's finalising a deal? Like, I'm fully aware that this is something that's going to do the rounds. In fact, I haven't seen what the tweet's on, but this tweet you can see on screen was sneaking up to 300 likes already. And it was, I don't know when it dropped, to be honest. I think it was about an hour ago or something. So, and that's from Slice Wrestling. Yeah, I don't know how many people are looking at Slice Wrestling. So I know that it's going to start picking up and start doing the rounds and whatever. Obviously, you're going to hear loads about this because that Fightful story just dropped as well. So that's going to be doing the rounds and that'll be everywhere as well. So lots of stuff. So yeah, I mean, look, if any of this, if there's any truth to the Slice Wrestling one, Bray's going to have a lot of influence and a lot of say. And I don't know. I mean, look, does Bo even want to go back? I really don't know. But I think if you was going to do and build a new family for Bray, it wouldn't be the worst to put Bo in it. I think Bo never got his chance on the main roster. The character that he was given was just, what was it? Bo leave, it was like this kind of inspirational kind of speaker guy that just went out and had like pretty bland matches. I mean, nothing, I don't remember any juicy storylines that he was a part of. I can't remember any decent creative. So, absolutely. I think if you was going to build a new Wyatt family, putting Bo in it, I think would be a step in the right direction, personally. And I think Rowan should be a part of it. I mean, maybe you do Bo, Rowan, and Strowman if you can get them. Obviously, we know Rowan's just gone to AEW. He's going to be on Rampage. I don't know if that's a long-term deal or just a one-off match or what the situation is there. But, yeah, Rowan on Rampage this week. Let's go down. If Bray does return, I hope it'll be a legit surprise and not spoilt before the show. Keep it quiet, Wyatt, like the 80s band, if they can. Well, I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult, but, I mean, you've only got to look at Bayley at SummerSlam to see that it is possible. I mean, there was no reports that Bayley was going to be on that show, and that was a surprise. Certainly no reports of Dakota and Io Shirai. I saw nothing on those. So I think if, again, take the Slice Wrestling one with a pinch of salt, but I do think that what Fightful have just given us is juicy. And, yeah, I think things are definitely looking like he is on the way. I think that it's too big an opportunity to pass up as well, isn't it? As we said, if you're Triple H, you're going to want to make a big impression, make a big splash. That's how you do it. I'm hearing Clash at the Castle is where he's rumoured to return. Slice has tweeted again. Let's have a look and see what's said here then. Let's click on Slice. They're tweeting out lots of... They're just tweeting out a lot of responses to the article, basically. So, a lot of... Wow. A lot of people are talking about this. I knew that this Sliced article would go crazy. Yeah, it's 2 hours now and just over 400 likes, just over 200 retweets and whatever on the Sliced one, and loads of quoted tweets that Sliced are retweeting as well. So again, you know, I'm like that with the Sliced one. And I've just got tagged in it. Someone else has just tagged me in it, so thank you. When Bray posted the thing on Instagram, he made wrestler references. Yes. But that is, I mean, he said that to be, so we're on the same page. What he tweeted out, that message he tweeted, that wasn't cryptic. He was basically talking about his, like, love for wrestling and what wrestling means to him. So there was wrestler references in there, like Rock Bottom and everything, because he was referring to The Rock. And, you know, he's just talking. We do a whole video breaking it down. That's on the channel already. But he actually responded to someone and said, this isn't cryptic. Someone was like, oh, more mumbo jumbo. And he was like, no, this isn't cryptic. This is literally me reminding myself about what wrestling means to me and why it's important to me. And it's just a reminder for others as well. So, yeah, for me, it's not so much really what was in there. It's more the fact we said at the start of the stream. It's more the fact that he was reminding himself about what wrestling means to him. Because, as I said in that video, you remind yourself something if you've forgotten it. If you've become so disconnected with something that you've forgotten how you feel about it or why it matters to you, and you have to remind yourself. Well, if you're reminding yourself, that means you're revisiting it. You're planning on going back to it. And that said to me that was his way of saying that he's... perhaps the pain of being kicked out of WWE, you know. I mean, he will have watched it growing up. It would have been his dream. You know, he tried Husky Harris. It didn't work. He was in Wyatt Family. That was awesome, but he never quite got where he wanted. He finally gets a character and a vehicle that gets him somewhere, and then he ends up getting cut. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I can understand the pain that he felt when he got released. And I could understand him, like, shutting a door and basically, like, you know, focusing on his family, focusing on films, focusing on anything but wrestling, basically. There was a lot of people, myself included, that thought he would go to AEW and pretty much go straight into it. That just didn't seem to be what he wanted to do. He wanted to kind of close the door on wrestling, focus on his family and focus on films. And I think, isn't it interesting now, and timing as well, what with Vince retiring, isn't it interesting that now is the time that he's reminding himself about wrestling and what he loves about wrestling? Because that says to me that he's getting back into that headspace. And I don't know, it just points a little bit more towards a potential return. I mean, there's a lot of this that's like scrambling around in the dirt. I mean, what everyone wants is they want he's coming back, this is when it's happening. That's what everyone's looking for. To be honest, as you know, has just been mentioned in the chat, hopefully we don't get that. Because hopefully we don't find out until he's actually on screen. I mean, as much as everyone wants that information, I bet you would rather have the surprise more. So at the moment, we're kind of just getting these little bits that were, you know, these little pieces that you're having to, like, make your own mind up, really, if you think there's anything in it or not. Some of you might you might not believe the sliced wrestling thing, and I wouldn't blame you. You might hear the Fightful thing and think, oh, there's not too much in that, and fine. You might be the kind of person that literally they're either on my screen or I'm not interested type situation. But there's many people out there that are just looking for anything that just takes them that little bit closer towards a Bray return. And I think there's definitely been some of those kind of things, those breadcrumbs, if you will, in what we've been talking about on this stream. Simon Cowie, shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate the support. Hope you are well. Simon says there was a video package at Money in the Bank, and you could make out a shadowy figure, and that was the Fiend. Well, those video packages, I mean, it was first shown at Money in the Bank, and then they showed them like on the Raws afterwards, and that was what led to Edge's return. Now, there was a lot, I mean, like, I would say that since Money in the Bank, those vignettes have done a lot as well to kind of get people talking about Bray. I feel really like the conversation for Bray coming back never went away, but I think once that vignette dropped at Money in the Bank, it really intensified. And there was definitely a lot of things in there that you can look at and say were just coincidence. And to be honest, I think a lot of it probably was. I think a lot of it probably was coincidence. I mean, there was some pretty wild theories doing the rounds, you know, that I think people were really reaching on. But you can understand why they were doing it because, as I said, I don't think there's a superstar out there people are so desperate to see come back more so than Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. So could there be some other stuff in those vignettes? Maybe. I would have to think it unlikely just because that did play out and it played out to Edge's return. A lot of people thinking that Edge might not come back alone, and seemingly now, you know, he came back at SummerSlam. It's been a little while. There's been no mention of anyone else coming. I don't know. That's a difficult one. I think that those vignettes really did get people talking, but we'll have to see if they do play a part in like any future Bray Wyatt return. But they feel like we're probably past them now. I think what they might have done is they might have purposefully put a few things in there. Not as many as what people were finding, because as I said, I think quite a few of them people were reaching. But there may have been some things that got put in that were designed to make you think that Bray was on the way back, so you tuned into SummerSlam, so that you spoke about it. I mean, listen, WWE, for all their faults, I'm sure they know what they're doing at times. And they know that if they put in stuff that looks like Bray, you know, if they put in things that relate to Bray, that is going to get people talking about WWE. It'll build up the excitement. People will tune into SummerSlam. Ultimately, yes, those people will be disappointed when Bray's not there. But SummerSlam was such a great show that I'm pretty sure that, you know, once you saw the ring getting lifted and all this kind of stuff, yeah, I think you would have gone, I'm disappointed Bray wasn't there, but that was still a good show, you know, and so maybe it was a way of hooking like you in or something along those lines. So I don't know, we won't know until like the whole thing plays out, will we? But Ethan said if Bray does return, I think it will be at Clash at the Castle, and he'll go after Drew if he wins the title. Maybe feud with Karrion Kross. I mean, look, I did a video the other day saying about like potential surprises for Clash at the Castle, and I did include Bray because there definitely feels like there's some momentum and groundswell. I mean, we've just seen 2 reports. I mean, we've just got one from Fightful, and now we've just got one from like Slice Wrestling as well. And this is on top of, you know, a lot of like rumors that have been doing the rounds anyway. So I kind of, and obviously Bray's tweet and, you know, the message he put out and John Cena putting that up on Instagram and all this kind of stuff. So it definitely feels like there's things happening and a groundswell and everything. If he was to come back anytime soon, then yes, I would say Clash at the Castle. But I can't really say that there's any reason for it other than it's the next big show. And it is a big show. Because I think the next one after might be like a B show. It might be like, I don't know. I don't even know what the next one is after Clash at the Castle, to be honest. But whatever it is, it probably is not going to be a stadium and not going to be as big. And I don't know that that's where you bring him back. I feel like if you bring him back like Bray, I feel like you do it in a stadium. I feel like you want the biggest reaction possible. I actually don't know where Survivor Series is, but traditionally that's not in a stadium. I don't think you bring him back in Saudi Arabia. That's a stadium. But that would be an interesting thing to look at, actually. I've never thought of doing it, but what pay-per-views are left? And out of those shows, what are stadium shows? Because I think you can probably rule out Saudi Arabia. I don't feel like that's the right place to bring him back. Although they are paying a lot of money, but I don't feel like that's the right place to bring him back. So I think you can rule that out. But after Clash at the Castle, what are the shows at the end of this year are stadium shows? And if there is one in there, maybe that stands a chance. But I do think that Clash at the Castle does stand a chance. What with it being a stadium show? Granted, it's in the UK, but I think, this is a big show. It's the first show of this scale in the UK in 30 years. I think they're going to want to give the UK fans something as well. You obviously can't do what you did, you can't bring back... you could bring back Charlotte. That would, there's things... We did a whole video. There's things you can do. It's not like you have to bring back Bray, but I think that you could definitely look at that stadium show and say that's something they could do. If Bray was in AEW, he would have debuted already. Also, AEW are in the red with signings because that's why they're hoping for a new TV deal. But Warner wants to cut budgets, says James. Interesting. G-Money said, I watched your videos. I appreciate the support, my friends. I appreciate that. Kamikaze said, if Bray returns, will he dethrone Roman? I don't know, to be honest. It depends when he comes back, doesn't it? And it really depends what stories Triple H wants to tell. I think if Bray comes back, then I could see it being a case that they are going to give him championship runs. I don't know if they do that immediately. And you could maybe make an argument that the person that beats Roman should be maybe like a young up-and-comer more so than Bray. I feel like Bray is over. And when I say over, I mean popular. So I feel like Bray, I can't say is as big as he's ever going to be, but he is massive. He's one of their top merch sellers. He's a big star. He's always trending. I know it would be popular for him to end Roman's title reign, and it would bring it full circle, and that's obviously a big part of the Fiend Bray Wyatt kind of character, if you will, the full circle thing. So it would fit. But I do just think, does he massively benefit from it? Does he become even bigger by ending Roman's title reign? Maybe. But for me personally, if I was booking it, I think I would give it to, someone that I know will be a bigger star as a result. Hard to give you a name. I feel like Cody. Because the thing is, Cody, he might feel like a big star to some of us because we watched AEW. But for those that didn't watch AEW, Cody Rhodes doesn't really mean a great deal. Cody obviously was in WWE. I know he's not a young star, right? I know that. But I think that him ending the reign would make him bigger. I think he would benefit from it, just like a young star would benefit from it. So I think Cody would benefit. Certainly a Bron Breakker would benefit. A Karrion Kross would benefit. These are people that would really be legitimized by it, whereas I just don't think Bray Wyatt needs to be legitimized. So, I don't know, it's a tricky one because I know a lot of people will be like, I don't care about any of that, I just want him to win it. I totally understand. And I think that if he returns, he will win it at some point. Seemingly, if the Slice Wrestling report is true, then we're talking WrestleMania main events, we're talking, some big plans. So, yeah, I feel like he would have a chance. Let's put it that way. He would have a chance. But it really depends when he comes back. And it really depends on what, stories Triple H has already got planned. Because I would imagine he's got a good idea already, Triple H, as to how this is going to end. That'll be fascinating, though. That'll be a question for the future. Once all of this is done, and Roman retires, it'll be really interesting to know at what point did you know that your title reign would end, and when did you know it was going to be whoever it turns out to be. That would be a really interesting thing to find out in the future. Michael said, is Slice Wrestling credible? Well, I mean, that's one that we've been very clear on. So they're not a top tier trusted source for me. So they're not right up there, but it is. I went onto their website and I can see other articles that they've written that have proven to, like, you know, be true. They've spoken about like how Theory will go on to win the United States Championship and things along those lines. So they've been around for a while. They've got a website. They've got tons of articles on there. I have no idea. That is my honest answer. But I have said that all throughout this. The reason why we did this stream was really for the Fightful report. But until that Fightful report dropped, we read the sliced one because I keep getting tagged in it. Whether it's credible or not, it's flipping everywhere. I've been tagged in it so many times. So it was worth going through what it said, putting it out there. You know exactly the same as what I know. You can make your own mind up. But as I've said all throughout this stream, take it with a pinch of salt. And wasn't Bray and Bo Dallas's dad in WWE? Yes. Maybe that's why he was at rock bottom. WWE would be the bloodline. No, the rock bottom line refers to The Rock. I don't think you need to go too cryptic. I mean, Bray has said that thing is not cryptic. It's not something that you really need to spend, like, rock bottom to me is The Rock, because his move is the rock bottom. And the point that I think he's making at that point, Bray, he's saying that wrestling is a world of contradictions. You know, it's the kind of place where someone can hit a rock bottom and people rejoice. So to me, what that says is, like, you know, normally if you hit rock bottom, that's awful, isn't it? If you've hit rock bottom, that's horrific. That is like a terrible moment if you've hit the rock bottom. But when The Rock hits rock bottom, like, arenas explode with joy. And so, you know, that part of what he was saying, he was talking about how there's, like, all these contradictions in wrestling. And I don't think it's any more cryptic than that, to be honest. Because he said as such, he actually responded to someone saying, this is me reminding myself about how wacky and weird and wonderful wrestling can be. So, yeah, there's plenty of wrestling references in that. There's meant to be, because it is him reminding himself of what wrestling means to him. Do you think with the return of Cross, Bray, Drew being pushed again, Cody might get lost in the shuffle? Do I think Cody will get lost in the shuffle? No, to be honest, because I think that I mean, ultimately, maybe. Short term, no. I think that there is a very definite plan for Cody to become champion, because this whole thing has been about him doing what his dad never got chance to do. You know, he told that great promo of the picture that was on the mantle of, you know, Dusty Rhodes holding up the WWE Championship. The only problem was that it was a count-out win, so that belt was not his. And but he was still so proud of the fact that he had a match for the title, and it was a win, but it was a count-out win. And, you know, Cody getting quite emotional. And obviously, you know, his brother Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, he was in WWE, had a very controversial character. A character which didn't quite know when it first came in what it was about, where it was going. I mean, he could have got himself, had things have gone differently, into a title kind of picture. But that character was so strange, and there was a bit of pushback on it, and it had to get, like, tweaked a bit. I think the networks were a bit uncomfortable. that, you know, he wasn't really able to. And, you know, very quickly he ends up going and coming back. And I don't know, he could never really get like any kind of momentum. And I just don't think after a while he was viewed as being that level. And then along comes Cody, and, you know, Cody does well at the start, but ultimately he becomes Stardust. And, I mean, Stardust was never going to get anywhere, and Cody knew it. So Cody ends up, like, going, and I think a big part of him coming back, 'cause don't forget, when he comes back, like, that's a big surprise, him joining. I mean, isn't that crazy that earlier this year, one of the biggest moments was Cody Rhodes joining WWE? I mean, you look at that now and you go, it's nothing. That's nothing compared to Vince McMahon retiring, Sasha and Naomi walking out and potentially losing their jobs. So, yeah, pretty crazy. But that was a massive story, him coming back. So I have to think when he negotiated his contract, he had a lot of power, just like Bray will. Because I've got to imagine that Bray will be able to walk in and say what he wants, basically. So, yeah, I think Cody would as well. And I've got to think a title run was in conversation. I've got to think, even if it's not in the contract, I've got to think it was in the conversation. So we'll find out. So ultimately, long term, yeah, I think with all these people coming back, Cody's going to find it tricky. But I think as long as, I don't think Cody's looking for a long career. I really think Cody is someone that's looking at Hollywood. I could see Cody going into films. I could see Cody going into presenting. I could see Cody going into other business ventures. Don't know that Cody wants to do this for another 10 years. I can see him. I think he said he's going to do it till he's 40. And then once he gets to like 40, then he'll, you know, do other stuff. He might just go a bit past that now. He's back in WWE. But by and large, I reckon, say 5 years, if that. I reckon you've got Cody around. Obviously, this injury is a setback. I think he comes back. I think we'll move quite quick with him getting the belt. I expect Cody to be champion at some point next year. How long he has the belt for, I'm not sure. Once he drops it, does he get lost in the shuffle after that? I could see him becoming Seth, the kind of person that you can always use for a main event, and maybe even give him another run with the belt if needed, if you want to. But kind of someone that's just around the main event scene while, say, Carrion has a run, or Dexter Lumis has a run, or Braun Breaker has a run, or Gable Steveson has a run, or whatever. But I can definitely see next year nothing changing the fact that Cody gets a run with the belt at some point. But what do you think about KSI against Jake Paul? I don't know. I don't even know if that'll happen. I know it's something KSI wants for next year. I heard him talking about it. But I don't know if Jake's doing it up for it. I haven't heard anything on Jake's side. You know, Jake is the A side in that because he has got the boxing records. When in the world of boxing, Jake's been there and done it. Jake's knocked out Ben Askren, knocked out Tyron Woodley. Tried to get in there with Tommy Fury and that fell through. Tried to get in there with Hassim Rahman and that fell through. So to me, like, you know, KSI, he's had a couple of fights against Logan Paul, and now he's facing some rapper. I mean, they're just at different levels in their journey. So it's all well and good, like KSI wanting that fight. I just don't know if Jake Paul's going to grant it. I don't know. I haven't heard his side. If Bray has been promised the title, does that mean that Cody isn't getting it as Cross is getting the title? So now is Bray. What does that mean for Cody? Look, I think Cody gets it next year. I don't think anything changes that. We don't know when Bray comes back. And if he is promised the title, maybe Bray wins it from Cody. No one says it's got to be immediate that Bray gets the title. It's no one saying he's going to come back and just get it. But it could be that it's like, we'll bring you back, we'll reintroduce you, we'll establish whatever this new character is, or re-establish The Fiend properly, and get some momentum, and then maybe the tail end of 2023, you know, you could see him like getting a title. But I don't think anything stops Cody getting it around middle of next year. I feel quite good about that. I think Cody comes back, I can see him in the Rumble. Maybe he gets it at WrestleMania. If he's not going to get it at WrestleMania, maybe he gets it after. There's lots of reports that Roman's titles are going to go in separate directions. So very soon it is expected that Roman won't have both belts. So that means that Cody, I mean, listen, it doesn't matter which one you get. They're both seen as being top belts. So Cody could get the WWE one. Bray could go after the Universal one. Karrion, Cody could win it from Karrion. Karrion could win the WWE one soon. Cody could win it from him. So there's loads of options. Plenty of time. I don't think Bray or Cody are going anywhere anytime soon. So don't think any of that's a problem. Are you saying that when he mentioned budget cuts, it was a reference to all of the budget cuts? Are you saying when he mentioned budget cuts, it was a reference to all of the budget cuts? Well, the Bray thing is interesting. I mean, what I would say is, if you haven't seen it, watch the video that we did where we go through the whole thing kind of line by line. I think that when he talks about budget cuts, yeah, he's talking about all budget cuts. I think, to me, he is talking about wrestling and what wrestling means to him. I do say, though, that the stuff where he talks about business is very interesting. Very interesting. It's amongst the most interesting part because it doesn't fit. Because he's talking about, like, wrestling's contradictions. It's where you can, grown men can be children again and all this kind of stuff. And then out of nowhere, he goes, business is business. Budgets have to be cut. And it's like, it's a real weird thing to put in. And I don't know if that's him, like, just reminding himself that what happened to him and the budget cuts in general, it's not a personal thing. It's not a personal thing. It's not something that he needs to carry with him. It was not an attack on him. Like, business is business. Budgets get cut. It's a hard one to read because it's so out of place with the rest of what he says. But I kind of feel like it feels to me like it's him reminding himself why he loves wrestling, but also coming to terms and making peace with the fact that he was released. So that's how I read it. But if you want to kind of go a bit deeper in it, if you've not seen that video we did in it, do that because we go through the whole thing step by step. Daze, is The Fiend's previous run wrestling's biggest waste of potential as a creative talent? One of. I always think of the Nexus, and I always think of the Invasion. I would have to say the Invasion. I mean, the way you've worded it with creative talent, I mean, that's interesting. Because was the Invasion a creative talent? I mean, probably not. The Invasion was, I mean, obviously, it's a storyline that was WCW. When WCW fought, imagine AEW ends, right? And WWE buy them. So WWE buy AEW. And then, you would be waiting, wouldn't you, for a big story of AEW invading? I mean, you just would, yeah? You'd be waiting for, the Bucks to attack the Usos and Omega to attack Seth Rollins and all this kind of stuff, yeah? So that's what happened in the early 2000s. WCW, they went out of business. WWE bought them, and everyone was waiting for the Invasion. The problem was, all the big names, they decided that they didn't want to be a part of it. They were getting their contract paid to sit at home. All they had to do was sit at home, and their contracts, which they'd already signed, they were being paid. So they decided to not be a part of it. So the Invasion is such a misstep because it's such this massive opportunity. I mean, huge. I mean, you're talking about the reason why we got an Attitude Era. The whole reason why there was an Attitude Era is because of them going head to head with WCW. So then WCW kind of going bust and then invading, but invading with the mid-card and the low, not the main event. There was no Sting. There was no Hogan. There was no Kevin Nash. Yeah, it was the mid-card and the low guys. It would be like AEW invading right now with Komoroto, Anthony Ogogo, maybe a Daniel Garcia. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of names. And you'd be like, where's Britt Baker? Where's MJF? Where's Darby Allin? Where's Omega? And all of that. So that, to me, is maybe the biggest missed opportunity, if you look back in WWE history, is the fact they weren't able to get those stars, or even just paid the stars the money. Pay them out of their contracts and get them a part of it, because this is what everyone had been waiting for. So I feel like that was big. I feel like the Nexus as well was a big one. But I do think Bray is up there. The only thing I would say is that Bray, with the Fiend character, does win the Universal Championship twice. He does win the Universal Championship twice. So that kind of feels like that's not bad. It's not bad. He does get it twice. I know it sucks that he lost it to Goldberg and then he loses it to Roman. But he does at least get to that level twice. Firefly Funhouse was pretty cool. I mean, I would say that there was plenty of bad, but there was quite a bit of good stuff in there as well. So, but yeah, I mean, look, he ends up getting released, doesn't he? I mean, you could have had loads of great stuff. So I would say that they absolutely did not get everything out of that they could. So yes, I would agree that is one of the biggest missed opportunities. I would agree. When's Randy coming back? There's no news on Randy. I've heard that he's going to be out for a little bit longer. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be expecting him anytime soon. But yeah, no date or anything. So I'm not expecting him this side of Clash at the Castle. Let's put it that way. Clash at the Castle apparently is Seth against Riddle. So Seth against Riddle, and I mean, maybe you see Randy at Clash at the Castle, but certainly not expecting him any time before. Do you think that Kozlov had potential? He was my favourite. Yeah, absolutely. I think Kozlov did have potential. I mean, he ended up going into like a bit of a comedy thing, didn't he? And I don't know, they just seemed to not really show I think if they'd have stuck with him and shown confidence in him, but you could say that about a lot of people. I mean, I kind of feel the same about Ryback. I think Ryback had loads of potential, and he had a great look, but I mean, they just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was like, sometimes you don't know what people are like behind the scenes, you don't know what they were like behind the scenes. And actually, that brings us nicely back to Bray, because that was the problem here, wasn't it? Behind the scenes, he was like quite argumentative and like, going to bat and trying to stand up for his creative, character that he's come up with, and he wanted the right creative. And you can't blame him. I don't blame him. But I think he was quite vocal about it, and maybe a bit too vocal. And the end result is that, he ends up getting cut, and we've had to wait for Vince to retire for him to come back, which is pretty wild, isn't it? Pretty wild. Where are we? We are coming up to, we've been streaming for about 1 hour 18. I reckon we do about 12 minutes. We'll do 12 more minutes. We'll keep getting your comments in. If you are just joining us, I might as well just quickly recap what's been going on. So there's been a few interesting developments in regards to Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. So Slice Wrestling, you can see on screen, they're making a big report. Again, how much you can actually read into this, I genuinely don't know. They're not one of my trusted sources. They're not one of my top tier sources. But because Fightful were dropping a report, that's why we've done this stream. And it would be silly to not include this, because this is at least from a source. This is at least from, not a kid in his bedroom. This is from some company that's been going for 6 years, that's got plenty of other articles out there. And if you check on some of them did come true. So it is worth just mentioning, and it's certainly doing the rounds on social media. But Yeah, we've got Bray Wyatt finalizes deal to return to WWE. Triple H's major offer includes WWE Championships, Wrestlemania main events, creative freedom, a major push. Backstage details. To be honest, the backstage details don't really go much further than what's on screen. But what we were really waiting for and what we got our teeth into was the Fightful report. Big report. We actually went through and read it line by flipping line. But the big takeaway there for me is that WWE Creative have pitched for Bray Wyatt's return. It is something that has been discussed by WWE Creative. That is Fightful saying that WWE Creative have discussed a Bray Wyatt return. And they've spoke to other people that say that they don't know what Triple H and Bray Wyatt's relationship is. But knowing Triple H and the people that know Triple H, they know that he, at the moment, is looking to please the fans and make the biggest impact possible. So, you know, you kind of put the pieces together and it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Right, let's jump into the chat. Anna, hello. I hope you are well. Anna said, if Bray does resign, don't want them to pull the trigger straight away. Take the time, pre-record the vignettes, and drip feed teasers. I agree. I completely agree. I mean, for me, I think the most connected I felt with Bray and The Fiend was the Firefly Funhouse when it first started. I think once the character was up and running, the Funhouses were still great, but they changed. You could tell that once that character was up and running, the Firefly Funhouses, that they were like, oh, we've got a new Firefly Funhouse. It was just Bray backstage doing a promo. It was basically a promo inside a Firefly Funhouse setting. There weren't many episodes of the Funhouse after those initial 7 or however many it was that had much in the way of substance. There was definitely a few bits. I remember Friendship Frog, and I can remember Wobbly Walrus, and things along those lines. There definitely was. I'm not going to say there wasn't, but I think a bit, the majority, the bulk of those kind of great moments that we remember, like the Muscle Man dance, you know, and meeting Ramblin' Rabbit for the first time, all the puppets and all of that stuff, it came in those first vignettes. And I think if you just bring him back now and don't do that groundwork, don't do those vignettes and don't do all of that stuff, you're missing out on a lot. And you know as well, I mean, what's really interesting, this is why it'll take time as well, is that if he was not going to come back under Vince, and I didn't think he would, but if he was not going to come back under Vince, then that means that it's only since Triple H took over that he has been reached out to. So that's been, a few weeks? I mean, just negotiating the deal is going to take time. I mean, that is not a day, is it? That's going to take drawing up contracts and going through fine print and getting an agreement. That's going to take time. And then Anna is absolutely right. Once that agreement is done, you've then got to start, like, you know, what's the character? If you're going to bring back The Fiend, aren't you going to want at least a fresh look? Aren't you going to want to freshen it up a little bit? Aren't you going to want to film some Firefly Funhouse vignettes? So you're absolutely right. It's unfortunate, but fans are going to have to play a waiting game. I think you're just going to have to wait and see on this one. But yeah, they're going to have to do a lot of work before he actually arrives. But that's what they did last time, and it worked really, really well. Really, really well. So I completely agree. Cheetah said, is Carrion confirmed to win a championship? No. So the report that came out was that USA wants a title back on Raw. They want to get a championship back on Raw. And that means that Roman's going to drop a belt. Now, it's believed that he'll drop that belt to either Drew or Carrion. So we don't know who, but either Drew or Carrion. Now, with Clash at the Castle coming up, you've got to say Drew is probably favourite, but apparently Carrion is right in that title picture. And this is why he's going after Drew. It's not believed that Clash is going to be a triple threat. I heard that. I think it was yesterday. It's not believed that Clash will be triple threat. So I don't know quite how that plays out. Does that mean that Drew is going to beat Roman clean? Or does Karrion come down and cost Roman? Maybe Karrion comes down and costs Roman. Drew ends up getting the title as a result. I don't know. Another thought someone else said is that maybe Roman defends one title against Karrion and the other title against Drew. So it could be Roman against Karrion for the Universal. And then you do Roman against Drew for the WWE. And then he loses that one, and that means Drew gets the WWE. However you do it, a title is going to Raw. Like, you might not like it. You might go, oh, I don't like that. It doesn't fit. I don't care how you do it. But USA Network want a title back on their show. So, yeah, it's Drew and Karrion that are in the conversation for it. Wrestle with Andy, hello. Hope you are well. How long has it been since he was full-time in wrestling? Must have been a couple of years. How long has it been since he was full-time? Since who was full-time? Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? This is a perfect future top 10 superstars with wasted potential, says Hasib. Let Bray Wyatt do what he does best, and that's create without anyone trying to control his work. Cheetah said, are you going to Clash at the Castle? I'm not, no. Oizin said, do you think he'll drop at least one at Clash? I think there's a chance, yeah. I mean, look, you've got 2 belts. One of them is going to Raw. They want a belt. Apparently, they said they would be up for an interim title. Look, if you can't give us the actual thing, just give us an interim. WWE didn't want to do that. So they've said, okay, well, just give us a belt back then. So I've got to think it's coming sooner rather than later. So, yeah, I think Clash is definitely one. I did a video where I was like the top 10 swerves, surprises, things along those lines. And yeah, I included that. I said I thought Roman losing a title would be right up there. See, these Firefly Funhouses, like, this is the kind of thing that he needs to return with. Anna's absolutely right. Absolutely right. This is what he needs to return with. And that's going to take work. Bray. It seems like it's been a few years since he was on the show weekly. Yeah, it has. Because he was... all the build for WrestleMania 37, he just wasn't around. It was Alexa that was doing all of that work. So, you know, you've got to go back to the end of 2020. I mean, obviously, like 2020 WrestleMania, that's when he's facing Cena. Once he comes through that, you go into the kind of feud with Braun. That's when he gets Alexa. He gets burnt alive. I mean, I would say once he got burnt alive, that was a problem for him. And he had to take some time off following that, which you can understand. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that is a serious... Being killed is a serious injury. And that, I know myself, I've been killed. So I know how long it takes to recover from that. And it takes a long time. So I think it was kind of like... I can't remember if it was... I think it was like tail end, wasn't it, of 2020? Because, like, WrestleMania was Cena, then he goes into the Braun feud, then he, like, recruits Alexa, and then he starts the Randy feud. And so I think it is, like, tail end of 2020. But then, yeah, I mean, early 2021, he's just not around. And I think, doesn't he come back at, like, is it Fastlane or something? And that's when we see him for the first time in months and months and months and months and months. And then we don't see him. I don't think we see him again until WrestleMania. And then you see him night after WrestleMania, and then he's gone. So it has, yeah. It's been a long time. The Fiend Bray Wyatt is back on Raw tomorrow. No, he won't be on. He won't be on Raw or SmackDown. Wouldn't you prefer Roman stays strong so you can do a triple threat with Karrion or Drew, pin the other and take the title? What would I prefer? To be honest, I don't care. All I care about is that Universal title reign. I don't care if Roman's pinned. It doesn't bother me. What matters to me is it that Roman gets to 1,000 days. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't really care if he gets pinned. I'm not bothered. I just think like he is the Universal Champion. He is at 700 odd days. I don't care what happens with the WWE title. Not bothered. The only reason he's got it is because they wanted that WrestleMania match to be bigger. So I'm really not bothered as to, what they do with that. So, I'm a lot more focused on the Universal title and that getting to 1,000 days. So, as long as it's not the Universal title he drops, that will bother me more. John says, can you see? I can see your messages, John, yeah. Right, we've done an hour and a half, so I feel like that's a good place to wrap things up. So there we go, some interesting reports coming out today. As we said, we were waiting for that Fightful one. The Slice one is interesting. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. As I said, take it with a pinch of salt. But I think the headline for me, at the very least, is that Bray has been spoken about by WWE Creative. A return has been pitched within WWE Creative. So that feels to me like we have definitely taken a step forward. So awesome, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate the support. Hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.